calling the meeting to order. Today's agenda are for discussion only. No voting or action will be taken at this meeting. A quorum of the board is present. Board member T.D. Howard and Alan Soward are unable to attend today. Discussion item from the special meeting, 2010 to 2011 Financial Integrity Rating of Texas First Report. Mr. Max.
We'll have a presentation ready for the public at 5:45 Thursday afternoon before the regular board meeting. We will be ready that evening to make presentations for that. We received a superior rating, the highest you can receive, but we are required by state law to do that presentation annually, so we'll do that before the regular board.
Any discussion, questions from the group?
I think on board book, it says date's wrong on that cover page. It says it ends in 11, but it's really the June 2012 date, isn't it?
Actually, the first
Or is it
report
June
runs,
11?
the first report runs a year behind.
Okay, well then, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. No other comments, then we're moving on to our discussion item from the consent agenda, board meeting minutes. Are there any questions in regards to the board minutes? Hearing none, moving on to the business office report. Mr. Max McCarthy.
We have only two amendments this month for the board to consider on Thursday night, which you have before you. And the board reports dealing with the business, if you have any questions on that, I'm here to answer wherever I can, as well as Mr. Green. And of course, we've got the next several days, so if there's any questions, just email or call. Sometimes it's a lot of information to wade through.
All right. If we don't have any at this time, just to reiterate, we can always call or email. And I know they'll get back to us in a timely fashion. Okay, appointment of School Health Advisory Council members, Mr. Randy Knox.
Yes, Madam President, this is something we do each year. Designees are appointed by the campuses, and then at the bottom of the list, you'll see we have some members of the district that also serve on it. They meet approximately 4 to 5 times a year, looking at ways they can do programs on the campuses to promote better health.
Are there any board members on that?
No, ma'am. Well, you serve as a
Yeah,
de
Payback.
facto. Yes, ma'am.
We begin. Okay. All right. Any questions? All right. D, sales of delinquent tax property, Mr. McCarthy.
Yes, ma'am. There are 3 properties that the appraisal district, Mr. Clarity's office will be presenting not only to the school board, but as well as the county and city for approval this month, so that those properties can be sold to the bidders that are shown in the documentation. Each of the properties appear, in fact they do, it's dealing with airship issues. People have passed away and no one's taken clear title to the land or the properties, and so they were auctioned recently, and what you see before you is the results of that auction.
Any questions? Mighty quiet group today.
I mean, and I hate to sound really stupid, but what is our interest in that?
It's to recoup the little bit of taxes that the school districts do,
Oh, okay.
delinquent taxes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
2010-2011 Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas First Report.
It's just, if the board wants to discuss it during the open meeting,
Okay.
they can do so.
And Dr. Rice, I'm gonna follow up on the question that you had pointed out earlier on the date.
Mm-hmm.
The information does run a date, a year behind, but actually the accounting portion of it is actually what is being reported as of last year, but it's on the information for the year before.
Okay. First reading of revised local policy DIA, employee welfare, freedom from discrimination, harassment, and retaliation. Mr. Colby.
Good morning, Board. Afternoon. These next three policies, DIA as well as FB and FFH, are simply being updated to reflect assignment of the ADA and Section 504 coordinator duties from Mr. Knox to Ms. Clark. And that's the extent of the changes on those three documents.
Okay, so that's DIA, FB, and FFH?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Second reading of revised local policy FFC, student welfare, student support services.
The update here is similar. It's adding the it's adding the federal or the state conservatorship liaison for students who are in the custody of the state. We added that last board meeting. We updated the federal McKinney-Vento Homeless Act representative as well. And so those updated references and employees' names are included there.
Any questions? Comments? Being none, thank you. We're down to discussion items from the action agenda. Consideration of board action on purchase over $10,000. Purchase of vehicle by CTE department.
I'm gonna take that one, Madam President,
Okay.
since she's gone. Basically, Ms. Summers and the CTE department are requesting to purchase an additional truck to carry projects, animals, and as well as robotics around. We currently have a dual lead truck, which is very uneconomical right now, and so this truck would be a smaller version to save on gas.
We skipped gifts.
Hold on.
Did we skip gifts? Cause I thought you guys said the agenda item was gifts and donations.
The gifts and donations were turned in too late to be on, this meeting was already posted, and they were turned in, so I couldn't add them to the agenda, but they will be on the regular meeting.
Ah,
They were turned in
okay.
after the 72
I was
hours.
just confused.
Okay.
Never mind.
We're back on track?
Sure.
Okay. All right, now we back to,
Basically, she's purchasing an extra truck to help with the load and to phase out the current ag truck, but we're not calling it an ag truck because everyone in the CTE department will have access to this vehicle. And it's more economical than the one we currently have as far as gas mileage. I do know she received 3 bids and she'll present those Thursday.
CTE is careers technology or
Career and technical education.
technical education. Okay, I hate acronyms. And the money for it, is it budgeted somewhere already, or does it?
It comes out of her Carl Perkins grant.
Okay, so
Which
it's
is a
money she
grant.
has.
Yes.
And she's just taking a chunk of it and getting a truck. Okey-doke.
that's a good way of putting it. Okay. All righty. Anything else on that one?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right. District Microsoft Enrollment for Education Solution Agreement, Mr. Garricani.
Yes, Board, we're bringing before you a request for your approval on a purchase for the renewal of our Microsoft enrollment, Microsoft agreement. This will be our second year in this agreement. It's on page 121 in your packet, and if you have any questions regarding this request for approval, I'd be happy to entertain any of this.
Anybody have any questions?
How are they getting it so much cheaper than the other two?
We had locked in some pricing with Dell in the contract that we have with them, or the agreement that we have with them, to actually go with a different vendor, we would actually have to abandon our current agreement. But because of our procurement process, we wanted to get 3 bids, so we got 3 bids before you.
Okay. Stay put.
All right.
All right, grade speed renewal.
Grade speed renewal, this is basically the electronic grade book that we use, the teachers put the grades in. This also includes our parent connection that our parents use to log in and see their child's grades. Once again, this contract I think has been in existence for quite a long time, but this is just a renewal. And this is page 123 in your board book, and I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Is this for the renewal of this school year?
Yes, sir.
Why can't we get, I don't know if it matters, but why are we
Why does
waiting?
not- why does it not
We're 2 months
coin-
into the school year.
I don't know why it doesn't coincide with the start and end of our fiscal year. I just know that the contract was probably drawn up at this time several years ago. I don't mean to keep looking at Mr. Martin, but he's probably more, got more information on the details of when that contract originated.
We changed over to grade speed a few years ago in the middle of the year. It wasn't
Middle
at
of the
the
year.
beginning of the year.
There you go. Sounds good.
Works for me.
Does that include, the renewal of the license? Does it include support in that?
Yes, sir. There's support.
All righty. Mr. Garricani.
Okay, and the
Wireless
last one
solution.
that I have for you is bringing before you, requesting approval for this wireless equipment for our campuses. To be specific, this will affect middle school and elementary campuses only because we're using title funds to purchase this, and those can only be spent on middle school and elementary. We're taking existing wireless equipment and moving it all to the high school. And the purpose of, or the outcome, the hopeful outcome, is to get a wireless access point in every instructional classroom in the district following this. And this is on page 125 in your board book, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Those title funds have been approved? I mean, last that was a problem, or that was,
Received.
Yes.
Received, right,
Received,
received,
yes.
okay.
So we do have them now.
Yes, ma'am.
One of the things that we learned at the school board training was that you can now use your instructional budget towards purchase of technology that's gonna, like wireless, districts had used, for instructional materials allotment towards wireless purchases as the enabler for instructional, to facilitate the learning. So I don't know if we have any money left in this. I know we're probably down to the funds probably almost extinguished for this biennium, but.
We do, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I think we're doing well on those, on the IMA, funds, but I do think that, because this is from title, it's probably a better expenditure.
Better
But
expenditure.
we do need to look at some other things to spend the IMA on, and Mr. Knox may have some things that we are hearing
No,
this.
so we have, Mr. Gary, Connie, and I, and Mr. Green have sat down and designated some technology funding that can come out. And some of the purchases we've made throughout the year with iPads and things like that have come out of the IMA.
And that was a common, that seemed to be a common trend, but there was a long discussion about wireless capabilities, and they have recently actually approved some allocations by districts out of that IMA funding for wireless expansion or bandwidth expansion. Anyway, I it's just something to think about for the future.
Were you aware of the wireless?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I am. I know that we have other initiatives too, and it seems like the original intent of the instructional materials allotment is to really fund technology, electronic textbooks, what have you, that go directly in the hands of a student. So it's not that they wouldn't fund infrastructure, because I know that they would. I think the sum total.
Not infrastructure, that was interesting. They won't, like, servers or routers, but.
Wireless infrastructure.
Yeah.
Infrastructures tend to be a broad term that's tossed around.
Yeah. Anyway, just something to keep in mind.
Sure.
For next year.
I have A little bit of a question. When you have 225,000 taken out of, what is our title funds? 2 million?
2.3.
2.3 million. The only thing that I would want to know is that this is going to be taken out of the allotment that goes to each individual campus. When you take it off at the district level, that means that's $250,000 that doesn't go to each individual campus. And so I just would like to know that some principals and some people also had some say-so, and they sat down and they took it at the district level before it got to the principal level. Because I know at the principal level, the regular allotment of money pays for your nuts and bolts and all the other things. Where you get your icing on the cake is title money and state comp money. And so when you take $250,000 off the top, then you've decreased that campus each individual campus's allotment. And that's just, I just want to make sure that they were all in some kind of an agreement as to this is the best way to go about doing it.
Well, actually, Mr. Green, what we did, we had 5 salaries, campus-based salaries, that were being paid out of Title I, which was not an appropriate use of funding for those positions. So Mr. Green took those salaries into local, and we set aside what those salaries would have cost the campuses and gave it to technology for that. I will tell you that we mentioned before.
But were those salaries on an individual campus?
Yes, they are.
They were?
Yes.
So you just decreased that campus's allotment by that teacher's salary?
No, Mr., we picked them up at a local, so.
Oh, you did pick them
Yeah,
up?
we picked them up
Okay.
at a local. So I think that the thing that that the principals do desire a wireless infrastructure because of especially elementary school campuses, because of the iPad deployment last year. So they really do desire that. It's a really positive thing for our campuses. I appreciate that, Mr. Green, and that observation, because you're exactly right. Principals do depend on that to go above and beyond what they are allowed to do normally.
It's actually an administrative decision. It's not a board decision as to how you allocate those things. I just want to make sure that the decisions were made in an appropriate manner. And what y'all do with them is y'all's ballgame. But
I think that you'll find that overall the principals are very positive about having a wireless infrastructure on their campus.
I guess I have another question that just jumps out at me too. I know what it used to be, but what do y'all take out of title money just as general administrative costs? You know, there's usually a percentage that goes into that the administration can take off the top. I know what it used to be. What is it? What do y'all? I didn't know what this administration.
Like indirect costs?
Huh?
Like the indirect costs that
Yes.
come off of it? Well, we can take 48%, I believe, but we don't. We take two district level salaries. Out of Title II, we pay a campus assistant principal's salary, and then any professional development. Now, we mentioned this in the last board meeting we had, because all of our schools have missed AYP, we're required to take 10% and set it aside for professional development. So what we did this year was depleted the district allotment, 235,000. Next year, we've already spoke to the principals, that will come off the top.
Okay, so I'm trying to get these percentages down. So if you have 10% that's going to be taken out by technology, and then you had 10% that's going to be taken out
Well,
because.
it wasn't technology. That 10% was in campus salaries that were being paid inappropriately.
I understand, but it's still 10% of your allotment, correct? 10. Where it goes, it doesn't matter. It's 10%. Am I correct?
10% was for
Yeah, the answer is yes.
I'm just trying to get a breakdown, I'm just trying to get a breakdown of where your
Yeah, I
title
understand,
money's going.
I understand what you're trying, when we're looking at that, we look at it like, okay, a certain portion of that, is allotted to Emmeline Carpenter, because Emmeline Carpenter has the access to that wireless, so it really wasn't a district expense. Emmeline Carpenter was involved in the discussion of needing a wireless infrastructure, but as far as taking that money and having it to pay for, programs and things like that, yeah, it was taken off.
I guess let's just cut to the quick. What I'm trying to find out is if there's 100% pie and 10% goes for this and 10%'s going to professional development, this and that, what percentage of that pie is going to the principals for their discretion is kind of what I'm, I guess that's what I'm kind of looking at, is to see how much leeway are principals having on their campus as far as title money is concerned. But that's just a question I would like.
We can get you the percentage.
It's really y'all's call. It's just that we have to hold him accountable as to where he's putting the money.
Well, and I'm sure you remember, not every campus gets the same allotment because it's based off the free and reduced.
Right, it's
So-
based on the number of per kid. Usually it was used to be so much per kid you got.
Based on the free and reduced
Right.
for that campus.
Right.
So it would be inappropriate to compare Carpenter to BQJ.
Well, I know, but you can get a percentage of how much is going in, that the principals in general have
I
control
understand,
over.
I understand your question. Your question is, how much of it is saved at the district to take care of district issues, and how much of it is allocated to campuses, period? I mean,
Yep,
okay.
you got it.
We got it.
So you can get that information too.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Can I ask one more question on the wireless?
Yes.
Is that clear as mud?
Was it $250,000 in?
Is that clear as mud?
For the access points and installations? Is there also gonna be a, increase in the monthly recurring? Are we gonna put some additional bandwidth, to support these access points, or? So would there be is there gonna be additional expense above the $250,000 upfront investment in terms of monthly recurring for additional bandwidth?
No, sir, there's not. The projects focus specifically on increasing capacity at campus. I feel like you're getting to, will we have an increase in internet bandwidth
Yes.
to deliver resources to?
With all these additional access points, are we gonna have a bottleneck trying to get the information
No, sir.
to the campuses?
No, sir, we will not. Completely outside of this, but since you asked the question, I'm actually working on a plan right now to move us from our current 200 meg
Right.
internet service to a 500 meg at half the cost we're paying for
Okay.
200 meg. So we're actually going to see a savings when we go to this service.
And get double the
Double the bandwidth. Yes,
Great.
sir.
That's great,
Because we are in an open meeting, we're gonna have to have the door opened, even a little bit. I understand, I heard the noise too, but it's gotta be open some. Thank you, Mr. President. You could open that and that one, as long as two go front.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. McCown? Thank you. Purchase and installation of 30 GPS units for school buses. Mr. Walker.
Good afternoon, board members, and Dr. Hayes. We're requesting to purchase 30 units of GPS for the school buses. We have 3 bids. One is from Sayon Corporation for $21,845. Zonar is $36,269, and Easy Track is $30,432. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Only question I have is, this is out of budget, this is the same thing as the other? It's in his budget, he's already got the money, he's just spending it this way?
That is correct.
We're not requesting an additional.
There you go.
Okay, the 30 GPS, will that cover all our buses or just How many buses do we have in the
That will
fleet?
cover the first 30 route buses. We have a total of 72 buses. And our plan is, if we have money left at the end of the year out of fuel or other costs, we would purchase additional GPS at that time. If not, we would put it in the budget for next year. By the end of next year, we would have all buses covered by GPS.
Are you determining which routes that you put these particular GPS?
Our primary concern right now are the route buses. That is correct.
So I think, I'm not sure, how, of the 30 buses that you're covering right now are the route buses, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know.
I guess I'm a little, I guess I need no clarification as to what the purpose of the GPS for the routes. I understand when you go off, when you're traveling out of town, needing the GPSs, but is there a reason you need them in just for regular routes?
The GPS for regular route buses will provide what they call a ghost trail. It will allow us to log onto the internet. We can tell every right turn, left turn that a bus takes. We can monitor the idling time at the school. We can also monitor the speed around the loop from that standpoint. So it makes us,
I'm glad I asked. That's impressive.
I think we also, I mean, I know that those are great things. We also have to look at it from a child safety standpoint too, in case the bus is ever, misplaced.
increases our efficiency, and also, it's also a safety factor.
If a bus is late, you're no worry.
I think it's great. I just didn't know.
If a parent calls and wants to know why the bus is not there at 7:05, we can tell the parent exactly where the bus was.
Or where it is.
Or where it is, that is correct.
Cool. It's pretty slick, isn't it?
Right.
We're high tech.
Any more questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, Mike Moses, MS, pad operators.
I'll take that one too. In our Gear Up grant, we're allotted $15,000 to purchase technology for middle school, since that's where the grant is right now. Last year, McMichael bought an iPad cart using Gear Up funds. This year, Mike Moses is gonna buy one using those same funds.
I just had a question. When in the summary, you say the benefits have been amazing, specifically helping students grasp concepts, understand math, science, and reading. So how do you define amazing? How are we measuring the impact? I believe there's an impact, but is there anything tangible that we can point to? So when people ask, we are investing a lot in technology, and how is it enhancing the overall learning? Do we have some data that we can point back to?
Well,
You don't have to answer that now, but that, kind of that's.
Amazing's not my word, so I'll have to have her describe it when she comes. I do know that we're able to track the student use of those cards and tie those back to how they're performing on their common assessments and things such as that.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind adding, if it's all right, it's a little personal story, but I have a child who has scored roughly 60, 70 on her first 3 or 4 spelling tests of the year, was handed an iPad and has scored 101 on 2 successive
Okay,
weeks.
Now that's amazing.
That's measurable.
That's at Regay, and it's not an iPad, it's something else, but
We are, McMichael students we're seeing a lot of positive come out of them.
Yeah. It'd just be great if we could put some tangible numbers around for every, just to brag about it a little bit.
Right.
The paper does a great job of highlighting all our opportunities. We can give them some tangible things, maybe get right on that.
I guess I'm a little bit prejudiced, but I'm sitting here. I know in our district, you had, because of the nature of McMichael and like Brooks Quinn Jones, had a lot of money in building funds that went to technology. And it's gonna take a while at least I don't know, it may have caught up, I don't know. I hadn't been in the picture, but I know the other elementaries compared to Brooks Quinn Jones and Mike Moses compared to McMichael were light years behind at one time, technology-wise, just because of so much money was pumped into those campuses with building funds because of when they purchased the building, when they was part of the package of the bond issue. And so I'm sitting here looking at Mike McMichael getting it last year, and then Mike Moses getting it this year, and it almost sounds like it should have been reversed.
That was one of those principal decisions that we had site-based, and Mr. Rivera at the time wanted to go with a slate, a different type of application or different type of system. And so we were kind of holding off on that, but I understand your point.
I'm just a little protector.
I understand.
Not my call, just ask questions.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, we're moving on to Rosetta Stone license purchase, Mrs. Stanley.
Good afternoon. This is a renewal of licenses for Rosetta Stone that are used for our incoming students and students who need more help with their language. And since the budget question is about to come up, this is out of Title III funds, which are designated from federal government funds for English language learners only. And I hope the explanation gives you, or the justification gives you a good view of what we're looking at. We don't have, we don't have 3 separate bids because we're joining the Region 7 co-op and getting these at $85 per license as opposed to $350 per license if we went out and got them from a vendor. This is on page 134 of your document.
Any questions?
And we've seen amazing results using Rosetta. What do you say, Mr. Stanley?
I think so. One thing that's interesting with our Rosetta Stone is we've had one student finish all 5 levels of English because typically after using it for a year or 2, we move them on. They don't need to work on that language anymore. They're ready for their content area instruction in the classroom and don't need more sheltered English like they would get with Rosetta Stone. But we had one student that finished last summer, and it was the 2nd summer with us, so after 2 full years and 2 full summers, he got through 5 full levels.
So how many, this would be additional 200 licenses, right?
This
Or-
isn't additional, this is renewing the
Renewing,
200 that
okay.
we already get,
Okay,
yes, sir.
gotcha.
We use these for, as I was saying, a lot of our newcomer students,
Right.
students who've been here a few years but need that help with language.
Right.
And we also have in certain areas and teachers that are working with those students that are on Rosetta Stone to help them build their skills to work with their kiddos.
Right. And is 200 adequate for your needs?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. Consideration of and board action on appointment of members to Purchasing Procedure Review Committee. We'll take care of that on Thursday night to officially put that in place. Then we have the consideration of board action on annual school district audit for fiscal year 2011-2012. Mr. Matt Harley.
Yes.
Max.
Yes, ma'am. Eric Carver will be here on Thursday night, give a formal presentation to the board. We hope to make it short and sweet, for the benefit of your time. But of course, Friday is when the audit committee met last week to go over the particular numbers. You spent quite a bit of time going through the audit and the findings and answering any questions. But if any questions should arise between now and the board meeting, he's encouraged board members to contact him. And if you need a cell phone number, either Ms. Anderson or myself would have that, so.
And I encourage you also, if you do have questions, if it is a very detailed report, and for those of you that are financially savvy,
I want to thank you for filling in for me.
you're welcome. You're welcome. And those of you that want to go through and read the report, because it is a lengthy report, So it won't be a long, drawn-out report is what we're trying to alleviate, because it is a lengthy document. It is in our board books, so you can go ahead and review. Any questions? Yes.
So just so the audited fund balance, from what I'm seeing, is about 16.5 million. How did that compare to the last audited year?
$31,000 less,
So,
roughly $31,000 less.
that's,
And we bought quite a bit of stuff out of
Yeah.
the facility stuff.
Yeah, that's why.
He said it was one of the cleanest report that we've ever had in the district. He was very complimentary of what everybody is doing.
I just think that's a great job by our administrators, that we're able to do what, looks like a lot of purchases being made, yet our fund balance is right where it was last year. I just think that's.
Well, I want to add that, something I can't say on Thursday night, because it takes too long, is, it takes a team effort. I mean, not just here in the building, but on the campuses. I know sometimes they feel that we're being a little bit too ornery, but I think it does, pan out when you get an audit like that.
And far as our fund balance, he said we're right where we need to be
Right.
for this size district. So, he had a positive report.
It's almost 4 months of operating expenses in the fund balance, which is, yeah,
What is the recommendation? 3?
3.
3.
We're almost at 4.
Somebody's doing a good job. Okay, so we'll hear that report on Thursday. Consideration of and board action on designation of acute shortage areas, which I have no idea. Michael Martin.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Hayes, this year's acute shortage areas have been designated by TEA and submitted to the U.S. Department of Education. This year, they are special education, mathematics, science, foreign languages, bilingual education, and English as a second language. Customarily, the board approves this shortage area in accordance with those submitted by TEA to the U.S. Department of Justice. And what it serves for is for currently student loan forgiveness.
Student loan forgiveness,
Teachers who.
Teachers.
who have student loan, if they come and work in these particular areas, then their loan is forgiven?
Could possibly be, yes, ma'am.
How's that working out for you?
It has been working. That's what.
How is the loan forgiven? Does the district pay it, or?
No, sir.
I know as a principal, you would, I had 3 or 4 science teachers and some others that would come up every year, and I'd have to sign a document stating that they were in that shortage area, and they would send it in. And if they sent that in, that they would not have to pay that loan back. And if they did, and if they worked 5 consecutive years, then they were, it was totally excused.
Well, that's not what, I mean, am I reading, because it says here something about a surcharge on TRS, what?
Yes, sir, and there, the surcharge still applies. However, this is the first year that it is not required as part of the retire rehire.
Oh, okay. Doesn't make any sense.
Do we still, as a district, don't believe in retire rehires?
We have hired some. Yes, sir.
Because that used to be, would not be even considered.
We consider it on a case-by-case basis, and we have hired some in the last year and a half.
It's just, when somebody's rehired, they have to be rehired at the years of experience, or can you negotiate that salary?
I'm going to refer that to Mr. Green, who's.
Generally, you can negotiate it, but we generally go ahead and go by the year's experience. We don't want.
But you can get them cheaper, because they're already getting retirement, you can probably get them cheaper.
Yeah, if we just We just, you know, they feel worthy of, the years they put in, and we value those years also.
But we want you to stay on the board, all right?
You might look for now.
That's true.
Give you a couple of months. All right. Thank you. And now we're down to consideration of and board action on nomination of candidate to fill a vacancy on the Nacogdoches County Central Appraisal District Board of Directors. Dr. Hayes.
Yes, ma'am, we have an opening on the Board of Directors for the Nacogdoches County Central Appraisal District. We have the opportunity to place 2 people on that board. We have had 2. One has decided that that's not what that individual wants to do, so we have an opportunity to place somebody else on there. What we've got to understand is that when we have there's a vacancy that's created, the actual board of the Central Appraisal District appoints the person, but they will take our recommendation and most of the time agree with our recommendation to place that person.
Do we have to vote on the recommendation?
We do.
We do.
We do. We'll have to nominate somebody and vote on that individual.
Okay. All right.
Oh,
I was gonna nominate Ron, but he couldn't.
Well, I was gonna nominate Mr. Green, but.
I'm in on that. Second.
We can't vote.
I'll second that one.
We can't vote, we can't vote, we can't
That's
vote.
excellent. No, I'm not voting now, but, yeah.
Okay. Camera, we are not voting now. Okay. All right. All right. Moving on to consideration of and board action of custodial transition plan, staffing, budget, and equipment needs.
The information is in your board packet. The budget, as you can see, remained the same. We just moved around a few of the items in the object. So actually, the budget of $1,511,135 stayed the same. So there's no amendment needed there. As far as the equipment needs, we are requesting a purchase over $10,000 for the equipment that GCA had brought in the amount of $116,852. That will require approval by the board. Chris can tell you a little bit more about the equipment. He has done some checking into it, the expense of it. We do know that we could not buy this equipment for this price, even used. And so we feel very good about paying for this equipment through with these funds. The staffing part, very simple. They have about 42, 43 GCA employees that will be coming over to us. We will hire maybe 2 or 3 to make a total of 50. We already had 5 that were still on the staff of Nacogdoches ISD. And so those 5 plus hopefully 45 will make a total staff of 50, with 1 supervisor being hired in the near future.
Okay. So we'll look forward to that.
Questions, would be glad to answer.
Looking forward to that report on Thursday night. First reading of revised local policy FL student records.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. We are recommending adding a single word to board policy FL local. That word is photograph, student photograph. What this is under FERPA, the federal student privacy law, we only can release certain student information to the public, directory information, and we currently, our definition does not include student photographs as part of that directory information. So we are recommending adding that. Reason being for things such as campus yearbooks, athletic publications, that would permit disclosure of those photographs without parental consent. I will highlight that number 1, parents always have the option to opt out should they not want that disclosed. Number 2, this is for school-related purposes only. This is not for general requests for directory information. It would still not be part for that. And then we reviewed approximately 35 other districts' policies, and of those 35, only 3 did not include photograph in that. So this is the commonplace definition of student records or director information under that policy. If you have any questions, I'll entertain those.
Thank you. Consideration of board action on facility items. Mr. Chris, I almost said Chris Brown. Chris Davis.
Been called worse, Madam President. And I don't know who Chris Brown is.
It's okay, no, we won't go there.
Good deal. What we have as the first item is your consideration of the final payment on the elementary gymnasium projects. In your packet, you'll see that final payment is $95,678.70 to J.E. Kingham Construction. That is with a savings of $3,989 off the original contracted price. And they have completed that project, and I've had some good feedback from the elementary campuses. They like the cool air. Doing a good job. Have any questions on that one? I'd be glad to answer. Okay. The second item is consideration of HVAC and controls for Emmeline Carpenter, Nettie Marshall, and Mike Moses Middle School. And what this involves is these Cool Schools grant, which we've mentioned last month to you. We actually did receive a contract for the Cool Schools grant in the amount of $545,015 is what they will reimburse the district up to. Assuming that we are able to finish everything by December 31st of this year. So the timeline is very tight on this project. And it is a reimbursement type thing. The district will need to expend the funds and then be reimbursed by the state comptroller's office. We've met with Mr. Green, Dr. Hayes. We also met with J.E. Kingham, our construction manager, and asked for some help with this in the bidding and managing this project, should the board approve it. We received 3 bids back with J.E. Kingham. We have a total of $990,102 for the equipment and installation from J.E. Kingham. And I have to apologize for this. Friday I left part of it out, so we will need to give you an amended total. There's $31,240 I neglected to include as the engineer's fee on this one. So it brings the total to $1,021,342 total project cost, should you agree to do this. And the balance would need to be funded by the district, and I'll defer to Mr. Green on that one.
We just plan on using Function 81, which is our capital projects fund that we budgeted a little over $1 million in. And so we would take about $450,000 to complete the project from it. Didn't really plan on spending it on this, but we do have the funds, so we can go ahead with the project and get it completed. Pending board approval.
Eventually, all this stuff would have to be done. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And
It is,
it would
and
be at
it's-
a cost of, to the district of over $1 million without this $500,000 from the Cool Schools.
We feel like if we bid it at a later date without the 2-month time restraint on it, we could get it at a lower price overall. But in speaking with the engineer, we would still probably be in excess of $700,000 for this work. And we wouldn't have access to the little over $500,000 from Cool Schools, because it ends December 31st of this year.
We've qualified for the 543 or whatever.
Yes, ma'am. They signed and said that we would get it if we meet the deadline.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Down to discussion item of information and report of items and information. Schneider Electric proposal for energy Mr. Green?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to introduce Emily Gooden and Jared McCurley. They're both from Schneider Electric. We did have an RFP placed in our local newspaper a couple of months ago. They were the only company that responded. And after they finished with their presentation, I'd like to ask Reggie Hudson to say a few words. He's our energy management specialist. So, glad to have you all here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Members of the board, I am Emily Gooden with Schneider Electric. Brought along with me Jared McCurley. Do we have a hard stop at 1 o'clock? Or should I just keep
You
going?
go-
As close as possible.
Okay, I'll go quickly. I did give this presentation last week at the facility committee meeting. It was about 15 minutes, so I'll try to cut that in half here, and I will get on with the presentation. But we wanted to give you an update. I have been working with Mr. Green and Dr. Hayes, as well as some of the facility staff for the last several months, to try to identify whether or not Nacogdoches has some opportunity for investments and upgrades to help save energy at the district. So put together an agenda. Again, I'll go through it quickly, but first of all, just who is Schneider Electric? I'll give you some insight on our company, and then talk about energy savings performance contracting. What's the past experience with this contracting method, and then what to expect from the process and program, and potentially what's next. Okay, so who's Schneider Electric? If you've never heard of us, everything that we do is focused around energy. Some of the more notable brands that we own are Square D. That's probably the most known brand. So your breaker panels at your house, probably Square D, and probably some around the district as well. But everything we do is focused on energy. Everything from what's my strategy on buying energy to how do I buy, how do I control, how do I optimize, and how am I performing. The group that Jared and I represent is the Performance Contracting Group, so that How Do I Optimize group in orange. And we are currently the Texas market leader in K-12 efficiency projects, and have been really since we started back in 1992, with doing over 120 projects with school districts in K-12. We have about $4.5 million in annual guarantees each year, and have helped districts across the state save about $68 million over this term. Okay, so what's performance contracting? Before I jump into that, I always like to talk about why is performance contracting attractive, and especially now in school districts, why is it attractive? Well, in having worked in schools for the last 9 or 10 years, we know a lot of what you're facing. And this year, in the last couple years, the #1 challenge has been finances and budgets. Everyone's being asked to reduce waste, look for ways to cut things that you don't need, and maximize your capital investments. So that's #1 on the minds of educators, typically, behind your normal mission, which is educating students. And then infrastructure. That's a huge challenge that we see all across the state. Aging buildings, because of the fact that finances have been such a focus, and budgets have been reduced, and you're not getting as much money as you used to. You have a lot of equipment in school districts that's being used longer than useful life, or it's towards the end of that. So you have most schools in the state that we see do have a number of facility needs. And then there's a whole, I'll call it environmental, but it's really just the idea that whatever you do, whatever you purchase, however you spend your money, it needs to be effective and efficient, so that you're setting a good example for the community and the school and the students. Okay, so what is performance contracting? It's a vehicle to fund capital improvements through energy savings. So it allows companies like Schneider to come in and evaluate how each of your facilities is using energy, what upgrades might be needed to install to not only upgrade the equipment, but to make efficiencies within the district and ensure performance on those upgrades. Everything that we do is designed around guaranteed energy savings. So, for example, we'll come into a building and identify opportunities with lighting, HVAC, controls, maybe building envelope, and try to identify what's the opportunity to save here, and how much of that guaranteed savings could be used to fund a project like this. It is a long-term partnership, and as I mentioned, backed by guaranteed energy savings. So a little bit more about the concept. What we're trying to do with ESPC is combine long payback items with short payback items. The quick payback items are things like lighting and control system modifications that don't necessarily cost a lot in the grand scheme of things, but do spin off some good amount of savings to help pay for these longer payback items such as HVAC or major building envelope improvements. So by combining those two, we're able to put together a project that's comprehensive in nature and pays for itself over the 15-year term. Okay, so what's the opportunity here at Nacogdoches? Before reading this slide, I wanted to mention that when our engineers first came on site to do the preliminary audit, it became really apparent to us that the district has had somewhat of a focus on energy efficiency, mostly in the behavior realm of making sure lights are turned off. I know that Mr. Hudson has done a great job of helping the district conserve where it makes sense without spending a whole lot on capital dollars. So with that said, we were able to find just about 13% energy savings on an annual basis. So that's about $154,000 each year that by upgrading some equipment that we'll talk about in a little bit, you could be saving that. So allowing the district to achieve about $2.3 million in energy savings over the term of the project and use that towards energy efficiency upgrades. Okay, so one thing we get asked a lot and is talked about a lot when doing these projects is, well, what about just our normal way we get work done? Why don't we do it that way? And what's the real benefit of performance contracting over other contracting methods? What this slide is showing is that we know from the Department of Energy and a number of other studies that operation costs can add up to more than 80% of the building's life cycle cost. So after construction, most of the cost is incurred in a building. And what this is showing here is as you put projects like this together, there are a number of things to focus on in the beginning, from facility audits, design, development, final construction and commissioning, but everything that's done in performance contract is focused on that blue part, the life cycle cost of the equipment and the life cycle of the facility. So when you're putting a project together, the question is, do you want to focus only on the upfront cost in the beginning or the longer life cycle cost? Okay, so just to wrap up this slide, we can help obviously use energy savings to help reduce your budget. I mentioned that you're in the 13% opportunity range to save. We do find about 10 to 30%, and you're on the lower end of that because of what I mentioned previously with what the district's done. Of course, a project like this helps show a return on investment and allows the district to minimize the capital investment necessary to do these funds because of the fact that the money is already being spent with the utility company. Of course, we upgrade your infrastructure and hopefully help tackle a number of deferred maintenance needs. Okay, so who's done this before? I mentioned over 120 districts. These are some of the schools, and I also put City of Lufkin just because it's so close, but a number of schools nearby. So I encourage the facility committee and also would encourage you to talk to these folks, Center, Jacksonville, Jasper, and the rest there, to hear why they thought doing a performance contract was a good idea. There's a number of reasons to get involved in one of these things. You can see the quote there from Richard Tedder, which essentially his big thing was that it was a win-win situation because we were able to help him get efficiency retrofits, upgrade his equipment, all by using guaranteed savings to pay for the entire program. So again, would encourage you to reach out to those folks and hear about their experience. Okay, so what have we done so far and what would be the next step should the board be interested in moving forward? We've had a number of meetings, workshops, conversations with the district. As I mentioned, we conducted a preliminary energy audit, which did show the ability to implement some upgrades to save about $150,000 each year off of your utility bills. So then the district went out for advertisement and put that in the local paper as required by law, and then gathered proposals. Schneider Electric was the only company to respond. And then the next step, should you decide to move forward, would be to select an energy services company and enter into an investment grade audit. An investment grade audit is where it would allow a company like Schneider to finish designing the project, in essence, help in conjunction with the district determine the final scope, guaranteed savings, and final fixed price of the improvements we'd be talking about. And then we would act as the general contractor to install the work and then measure and verify on the back end. So in summary, based on our conversations to date and the results of the preliminary audit, we do think that Education Code 44901, which is the law governing performance contracting, would help the district achieve the rest of the energy savings potential district-wide and allow you to use guaranteed savings to offset the cost of some of these known HVAC needs, control needs, lighting needs, and also expand the control system to move from a more behavior and human focus to a more technology-based system. That's something that we discussed with the administration early on. And then overall, just standardizing and allowing you to reinvest $2.3 million back into the district rather than just sending it to the utility company. Okay, so I don't know if you want to open up for questions or have Mr. Hudson.
Yeah, we can ask a question. Did I miss how much to enter into a contract if we decide to do that? Let him hear. Did I miss it?
Yeah, the investment grade audit, I didn't mention that yet. The investment grade audit is a couple-page contract that I've given to Mr. Green. The cost of the audit, if you decide to move forward with the improvements that we recommend and the project that we recommend, the cost of the audit's just rolled into the contract and paid for by the energy savings. If we get to the end of the audit and the district decides it's not something you want to move forward with, I think the cost of the audit's around $90,000. You essentially pay us for our engineering and time to develop the audit.
So it's a fixed fee contract, it's not a percent of the savings.
Right.
Do you know how your company became aware of this request?
The RFQ. We approached the district months and months ago, so we have been talking to them about it.
So you
Yeah.
were in contact with them before it was put in the newspaper?
Right. And we know that getting one response is sometimes not ideal from school boards, and I've heard all meeting talking about three proposals. I guess what I would say to that, it's not all that uncommon in our field. Because of the process that required by the state, it is an RFQ, so it's not an RFP. There were no numbers or figures in there. It was based on qualifications, which again, Schneider has done more than I think all of the other ESCOs added up together. But a number of projects in K-12. Also, Jared has worked with Jasper, Spurger, and Kirbyville, who all also only got one response and decided to move forward. So it's a pretty common thing in our industry.
Would Schneider be opposed to going back through that process if we decided that one company wasn't enough to hear from and visit?
We wouldn't be opposed. We'd certainly respond again in hopes.
Did either of y'all work with anybody at San Angelo State when they did theirs?
Yes.
Did you have any problems with that contract?
Not with the contract.
The performance guarantees?
No, sir.
You sure?
No, well, Angelo State loves the project.
Lost the project?
No, loves the project.
Loves the project.
Are you familiar with people there, or?
Do you know something we don't know?
I'm just asking questions. That's what I'm allowed to do, right?
Yes.
Do anything other than post the RFQ in the Sentinel? Did we do anything else? Did we put it on the website?
We did put it on the website.
We put it on the NISD site.
What else, Mr. Green?
I'm not even hearing the question.
What else did we do to post the RFQ? We
Well,
put it on the
again,
website.
the policy is CH legal, and it just says you have to post in your local paper. If you don't have a local paper, your county paper. And that's what we did.
Did we put it on the website? I said we did. Did we put it on our website?
No, sir, we did not put it
Sorry
on the
about that. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I will say, that I'm tired of us worrying about what we legally have to do and would really like to see us move towards what makes good appearances, just in general.
So you're,
That's all.
from what I'm hearing is that you want to get more.
Well, we're not at, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
That has nothing to do with Schneider, it just,
More bids. Okay, any other questions? Any other comments? Thank you.
Mr. Hudson would like to say a few words.
Oh, I'm sorry.
as your energy manager, there's one question you might ask, and that is, can we do locally what these folks are doing without having to make all that payment and everything? And we can, and we have somewhat done this in the past. However, we've never been very effective in it because when we go out and build a building and put an air conditioner in, the primary focus has not been on the efficiency of the air conditioner. And it's not until later do we start operating that we realize that in fact we do not have very efficient air conditioners and things. And yes, there's a lot of construction companies that come out and put air conditioners in, and a lot of them can tell you, yeah, this is a really good, efficient unit. These folks are specialists in this area. And the one thing that they differ from the ones that just come in and construct things is that they have a guarantee that down the road, if this doesn't save you energy, then they will give you your money back. And so that's the one thing that I see that this company does that most construction companies don't do. I don't know if there's any others out there that do this, but this is pretty unique. And it really focuses, if we're serious about spending this much money on conserving energy, then we need somebody that knows about it. Any questions on that?
Thank you.
I would just like to thank Mr. Hudson, because obviously, you know, what we heard is that, I think what Ms. Emily said is that the savings probably wasn't as much as you would expect from a district our side because of the efforts that you've led over the last 5 years with our energy efficiency to the, you know, that was in your control. I know we've heard at many meetings some of the initiatives that you've spearheaded, and I just wanted to thank you for that.
When y'all were doing your audit, did y'all, in this initial audit that you did y'all look at things besides electric, like water diffusers and things like that, or?
We looked at electricity and gas primarily.
Okay, so no water.
We would look at water in the next phase.
In the next one, okay.
Thank you again. There no further business. The meeting is adjourned at